I'm underwater. Like,
Yeah.
I can't cover. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You want me to drown to cover my boobs? Like,
Welcome to Secured Sessions, the podcast with no niche. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and stream our episodes on Apple Music and Spotify with new releases every Tuesday morning. You may know today's guest from Miami Swim Week, partnerships with major brands like Fashion Nova, or be one of her 400,000 plus followers on social media. Today, y'all will meet an established model and hear about the competitive and sometimes toxic world of modeling and influencing, breaking into a highly competitive industry where only 0.001% make it big, and so much more. Please welcome to Secured Sessions, Kalli Locklear.
hi, how's it going? Good intro.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So to get started today, and so they can get to know you a little bit more, what is something important that you want people to know about you besides being a successful model? Obviously, that's what they see day to day, but who are you outside of that?
Big question.
Thank you.
If I wanted anyone to know anything about me, I guess it's the value of like the inside. Because
Yeah.
we're always looking at the exterior, and especially with the industry I'm in, that's like how I'm presenting myself. It's just how I look.
Yeah.
And the impression you're going to get is someone when they walk in the room, it's not always going to be their energy. It's how you're presenting yourself. But I'm actually like very down to earth. And I would say like, I really care for other people.
Sure.
I have a big heart. But you're not always going to see that. You're looking at my printed images. You're not going to know my heart, you know?
Absolutely. Do you think you get that a lot? People kind of judging you by your exterior and thinking maybe you're mean or a little catty when really, you're not.
Actually, yeah, I do get told a lot. They use the word like intimidating. Like,
Yeah.
I was intimidated to come up to you. I do have a little bit of RBF, so
Same.
it could be that, like my resting B face.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of comes with the persona. Like if you have a lot of confidence and you walk in with that, sometimes it can be intimidating to other people.
Sure.
And they're gonna perceive you maybe as not humble or, kind of a rude person.
Absolutely. Definitely makes sense. It could also be a projection of their insecurities maybe, but who's to say? Who's to say? So I know initially you're from Texas, right? Dallas?
I'm actually from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And then my older brother and sister lived in Dallas.
Okay.
So I went there for a little bit.
So why the move to Miami? I know obviously it's probably better for your industry, but there's a lot of other cities like LA, New York. Why did you choose here specifically?
It was like in the middle of COVID and everything was closed down except for Miami. And then actually at the time I was working in mortgages. I was doing a remote job. I know, totally different.
Yeah.
So that company was based out of Texas. I didn't tell them I was moving. And then me and one of my girlfriends at the time, we just moved down. And I actually got into modeling very seriously after the move. I want to say Miami was when I found kind of my passion for it.
Sure.
It was just kind of, because COVID, like, why not?
Yeah, makes sense. So did you have a pretty big following prior to COVID, or is that when it kind of exploded and you started posting more and gaining a following?
I'd always kind of done social media, but not on the way, like now I monetize it and it's my full-time income.
Sure.
Modeling. Definitely like this year in specific, I decided to take it serious, and probably like February is when I started. And I was shooting like every single day and posting every single day. So that's when I really started to see like some viral content.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of been into trying to like influence.
Sure. What was your first viral post? Do you remember when you first started seeing a bunch of views and a bunch of likes? What was that?
Of course, it was bikini.
Yeah, right. Of course.
I know. I have like a pretty big male following. It was not like slow motion, but like slowed down, just walking in a bikini video I did here. And then I had some other like ads for a beverage company and a bikini, and that like really, really took off.
Okay. So that's when you kind of knew, okay, I probably have something here. I think there's some potential to grow.
Yeah, it was cool to see it really take off. And then you can look at like your engagement, your insights.
Yeah.
And the reach, I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, wow.
One post,
Yeah. Do you think it was a little bit of culture shock moving to Miami and getting into the industry from being in Texas and Michigan? What was the craziest part of that for you, and what was the most different?
Well, Miami in itself is like, it doesn't even feel like you're in America.
Yeah.
Like, it's just she's been here. She knows.
For one day, guys.
Yeah.
I know.
It is completely different in terms of the women here. Let's just go that angle. In Texas, me and the girl that does my hair, she is from Texas too. And we always talk about this. She moved to Miami. And the women here, like it's a big plastic surgery city. You're gonna see BBLs here, like
Have never seen.
you've never seen, like just walking down the street casually. So it's just a different world in that sense. And then there is a lot of people that come here to party. So there's a huge atmosphere like that.
Sure.
You're not gonna really find that unless you're in Vegas, anywhere else, you know.
Definitely. That makes sense. So with that said, I know there's different beauty standards here, right? Have you ever felt since moving here kind of pressured to get certain procedures or things that you hadn't thought about previously? And how do you feel about the beauty standard here versus back home?
Absolutely. I actually think Miami can be very toxic for women. You have this standard here that if you're not a 10, you're not going to feel like you fit in. And everyone here really is so beautiful. I can say the same thing about Dallas though. Like the girls there are stunning, like beautiful faces, hair, glam. But here it's more like about the body.
Sure.
So that's when the plastic surgery pressure comes in. And I used to, when I lived in Texas, I would see these girls on Instagram. And I'm like, that's so Photoshopped. There's no way her butt's that big. And then I moved to Miami and I'm like, okay, her butt's that big, you know?
No, it really is. Yeah.
So absolutely, I've been in clubs and I've been seeing the waitresses walk by and I'm like, I wish I had, you know?
Yeah.
And I actually got to the point I almost did do a procedure to enhance my butt. And then this is right before I signed. And they like more of like a natural look.
Yeah.
And it probably would have ended my modeling career for what I do.
Sure.
I would have to really pursue just Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely.
I even had this, like when I was working in nightlife, I'm like, do I want implants in my butt? Like, you know, no, I don't. But you see some of these girls and I'm like, they might have been like morbidly obese and then they got a BBL and now they look insane.
Have you seen?
Like, you look good, but you probably have diabetes. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm like, well, now you got your stomach in your butt, girl. And it's like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, hold on.
That's what I mean. I'm like, you still, like, your heart's having clogged arteries.
Yeah, exactly. But you're in a Drake video, though. I don't know how long you're going to make it. However, exactly. I'm like, at least I'm going to have a heart attack in my Bentley, I guess.
Yeah,
but
that's literally Miami. It's insane.
Yeah, that's wild. No, we were in the elevator of her building.
No, that's what I mean. They're everywhere.
Yeah. When I was like, you know, doing a BBL, I don't know.
It makes you question. Like, Miami is the worst place for women. Like, I swear, like, in terms of questioning yourself.
Yeah.
This is crazy about Miami. All of girls hit me up all the time, like, hey, can you get us into this nightclub or whatever? And this actually just happened. The promoters or whoever I'm going to set them up with is always going to ask for photos of the girls. It's their job.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have to say no. Oh. And it's like so awkward because I feel bad, but I'm like, I would also feel bad for my friend that's a promoter if I send him out with these girls.
And it's not.
You're in Miami. You can't come out here, you know, you have to have high heels on. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what they're expecting, but it's like girls a lot of time, like they're going to get turned down going into the club because
there's a standard.
There's a standard.
What happens if, say, these girls are just like freaking Picasso on Facetune and they know how to like edit really well?
Half the world.
And, yeah, I mean, I'm working on it, let me tell you. But do you think, has that happened where they just are really, really good at editing and then they pull up to this place and the promoter's like, who are you, sir? Like, this is Steve Harvey, not the girl that I met.
Steve
like,
Harvey.
What do you, like, what do you do? Do they turn them away at the door? Or is there like a nice way to,
No, they're not taking you to dinner. You're not going out.
Has that ever happened to you where you help someone out and send a pic?
Oh, it's like me?
No, not you.
Like Steve Harvey.
No, I actually feel like you very much look like your social media, like. Yeah. But has that ever happened where like a girl asked for a favor? Like, hey, can you connect me with this promoter? And you thought, oh, she's cute, sent pics, and the promoter's like, that is not the girl you sent me.
Yeah, this literally just happened. One of my like good friends, she's like coming down to Miami. She's like, hey, I have this group of girls. I'm such a people pleaser. I'm like, yeah, I got you. I'll set you up wherever. And then I'm like, I just need pics of the girls. I've already grouped them together with the promoter. And then she sends them to me. And I'm just like, I can't send this to him, you know, like, and it's not, I'm not hating on the women by any means. Like, women are beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just like, going out in Miami, like we've said, it's like a fake city. Everyone here is like, it's so plastic.
Yeah.
So that's what you're walking next to. That's what they're expecting. He like literally couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I put them somewhere else and it was fine.
At an Arby's. You're just kidding.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing too, is like, and when you go out with the promoter, like it's free, it's comp.
Yeah.
You know? So they need like, so they want the paying clients. They need the pretty girls.
So it's somewhat like transactional a little bit. It's like, okay, we'll give you this, but this is our expectation. And is that wrong? You know, I don't think so. I think if they're willing to help you out and give you this table or give you this dinner, I mean, and that's what they're asking. If you don't fit that, that's okay. Like you said, everyone's beautiful in their own way, but I mean, you can't be mad at them when they have a certain preference.
Right. Yeah. It's literally just a standard here. I moved from Texas, and in Texas, like you can be more casual. You can wear some Jordans to the club and you look cute. Here, you like pretty much can't do that. And I didn't know that, you know, I was like wearing Jordans out. But I was going in with people that like worked the club, so it was fine. And then eventually they're like, hey, you have to have on high heels.
Oh, wow.
Like, we can't let you in. So I was humbled, you know, like,
yeah.
Okay, never again.
Yeah. And there's nothing, I really don't think like there's anything wrong with having standards, you know, like for yourself or for them, for their business, you know, because at the end of the day, it is a business.
It's a business.
So that makes sense.
It's a business.
Absolutely. So sure.
No, well, you are. Like, I get paid to go to clubs. Like, that's what I'm doing it today. Paid as an influencer. I do post like a story for them, but I'm basically there to like bring in like the atmosphere of like pretty people. They hire models to do all these events all the time in LA.
Yeah. Well, like, because who's that gonna bring in? It's gonna bring in guys who want to buy tables because they're like, oh, that's where the girls are. Like, that's where the attractive girls are going, and they're gonna come spend money. I mean, it makes sense.
They want like, even for like PR events, so like that there isn't people necessarily coming to spend money, but it's just for like a certain image. Like they hire models and male models all the time. Like a lot of them are there through agencies like at these events.
Really interesting. Well, because I guess like you go on social media and you see the caliber of person that's there, and it makes it something you want to be at. So it makes sense. Do you think, you know, there's girls out there maybe looking at Instagram, and now that Ozempic is so popular and things like that, trying to pursue an impossible beauty standard where there probably are people that edit a lot? You know, there's people that edit their photos. And do you think that that's harmful to younger girls coming up or people on social media trying to pursue something that isn't even real? And what are your thoughts on using FaceApp and Ozempic as kind of like a cheat in a way?
Well, one, I think I saw this like somewhere on TikTok. It's like 75% of women edit on social media. I edit. If it's like my own post, I absolutely, everyone edits. Yeah,
I mean, girl, I love a good kiss too.
Yeah,
trust me. I'm like I go to Hollywood
we all
for.
Know what that FaceApp is.
Yeah,
it's literally normal to want to put your best images online, and that pressure, I think it's now it's trickling down younger and younger. Like you'll see girls on TikTok, especially. I'm like, there's this little group of girls in Miami I follow. They're stunning, so beautiful, and I found out they're all like 19. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you can't even be in the club right now. But they're looking older and older. And I don't mean that in like they look aged.
More mature.
Just because they're getting into plastic surgery earlier. They're getting breast augmentations at, you know, when they would be a freshman in college or just graduating high school. I do think it's super toxic, and I've fallen into the trap more than once. A lot of times I'll be like starting to over edit. Right. Yeah. Because I feel the pressure. Even though I do this, I literally shoot like professional shoots like a couple times a week. And I'll have to like take a step back and try and look at my Instagram as a whole. And I'm like, how can I like start embracing like where I don't need to edit?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think we're definitely our own worst critics. And I think sometimes I'll look at someone else's photo and I think they look great, but then I'm so hypercritical of my own. And I think maybe someone else looking at mine wouldn't think that, but it's like breaking out of that mentality, I think can be tough, especially with how social media is now and all the comparison. Has there ever been a big job that you've turned down, and why? Like something that might've been high paying or something where, you know, maybe it didn't match up with your moral compass?
Absolutely. So I think OnlyFans is like a big controversial.
Yeah, was gonna ask about that.
Topic. So if you are signed with an agency, a modeling agency, typically you cannot do OnlyFans. And there's quite a few reasons for that. One, professionalism. Two, like the whole pay thing with it, I would kill it on there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But morally, and this is not a shot at anyone that does it, because I'm all for like get your bag, like hustle how you want. I've had to like really work hard to set myself apart from over sexualizing myself in the industry. And then there's been a couple big magazines that I thought it was so cool to shoot with and be on, but then you have to look at kind of the association with that.
Sure.
Whether it's super explicit or nudity, but implied nudity.
Right.
So I've had to turn down some jobs.
How did you decide how you wanted to brand yourself? Obviously, some people do go more the OnlyFans route and stuff like that, but what made you decide to stay within the lane that you're in right now?
Actually, it was my mother agent. She called me and he went through my Instagram and hurt my feelings really bad. Like, I was like so offended, but honestly, like, it's his job to like get me, mold me into who I'm supposed to be as a model. First thing he said was, your boobs are too big. And I've had plastic surgery. My boobs are you know, so that hurt, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to change it.
Yeah.
You know, thanks. He was like, why are you trying so hard to be sexy? Why are you trying to sell yourself so hard to be sexy? Why are you posing with your hands on your chest?
Yeah.
And he just kind of went through and said, you cannot lead with sexy. You have to lead with like your relatable side.
Sure.
And I really took that advice. And I mean, I've changed my hair like 4 or 5 times to get to the color he wanted. Now I kind of like say, you know, go a little more blonde now.
Yeah, for sure.
Blonde moment. But I took his advice, and that's really when I was taken serious in the industry.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I guess it was meant to be then. And I don't think, you know, either of us want to knock the opposite, people who do those different things, but to have longevity in the industry, I think, you know, I'm sure that's important to kind of stay true to yourself and your brand and everything like that. How would you say you've done such a good job of staying relevant in the industry and continuing to grow, aside from just being true to yourself? Are there any other hacks to stay, you know, on someone's For You page and just kind of relevant in a constantly changing and growing industry that's so competitive?
I would say consistency is the number one thing, and really anything to do. Especially, I'll talk about Instagram because that's like my biggest platform. They like, I don't know what it is. If I'm posting every single day, my engagement keeps going, and I'll see my stuff start getting put out. But the second I take like a couple day break, it's like they like punish me.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing to kind of keep going, and that's your own momentum too.
Sure.
If I take a break from shooting, it almost like it's hard to like, just like if you take a break from work,
right?
It's hard to like get yourself back in it, and like, you gotta push yourself all over again whenever you take those breaks. So it's just giving yourself a kick in the butt and knowing like, this is what I want to do.
Absolutely. What do you think are some common mistakes that people will make when posting? Do you think there's a preferred way to post? Is a reel better than a grid post? Or how would you recommend someone trying to break into the industry, like kind of what to post?
I think, well, I'll go from my personal experience. I think overthinking your content, especially if it's something like you want to grow, like you literally will not grow until you start.
Yeah.
And if you're waiting like, oh, I can't post until I lose this weight, or I can't, you know, okay, well, get in the gym, lose the weight as you're, you know, and show your journey. Like, I think it's being scared to be vulnerable. And like, people want to see who you are besides your pretty face.
Sure.
You know, and
like the relatability.
That's how you connect with an audience. And that's how you're going to build that community, is showing really like your authentic self.
Absolutely. So speaking of your authentic self and kind of people getting to know you better on more than just a surface level, have you found it hard to date being a model, growing in the industry? And how are you able to tell if a guy likes you for who you actually are and isn't just kind of an opportunist or a fan? Has that been tough?
Well, I've actually been in a long-term relationship for 2 years.
There you go.
So, but in terms of our relationship, and I think a lot of others, dating a model, I would say probably is difficult for a guy, because you're getting a lot of attention. You're shooting with a lot of male photographers. Trust has to be there with any relationship.
Sure.
But the biggest thing is like, if a guy isn't literally like my cheerleader with my career, it won't work.
Good. Yeah, as you should.
Going into, like we talked about, walking into a new set, you're always a little nervous. So if I have a guy stressing me out about like a big shoot, or stressing me out about a runway because my outfit I don't need that.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me I look good and you're proud of me. And cheer me
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah. And if there isn't that trust, just like there should be in any relationship, I think that's just kind of a weak foundation to start. So
100%.
completely agree. Have you ever had, let's say, a fan, a follower who has gone a little too far, like a stalker situation? And what happened there?
I actually have had a few scary situations.
Oh my gosh.
And one happened recently. I do a lot of influencing for the nightlife here, and I post where I'm going to be, but typically there's security and it's very protected because we're helping promote the club. And there was a guy that like straight up was like stalking me, like wouldn't leave me alone.
No.
And he somehow got past security, followed me to my car. That was really scary. And it made me like, okay, I don't know if I want to be live posting, which you should never be doing.
Sure.
But when you're working, it's like supposed to be okay.
Yeah, it's going to bring traffic in to say you're there, I'm sure. So it's
exactly.
like,
That's
yeah.
kind of the point. But that was like, what are you doing? Like, you think I'm going to come up to you or like, you know,
it's going to work. Like you went through so much work to get to me.
Yeah,
Like now I just am in love with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Like, sir.
that's
Yeah.
great. So it can be scary. And I've had guys come up to me at lunch, like hours away,
Really?
me and my friends, and they're like, hey, I know you from Miami, from Instagram. Like, and it's okay to approach someone. I think it's just like all about like your mannerisms.
What's the right way to do that? If for the people listening, what would be the right way to come up to you instead of terrifying you for your life?
Well, I guess if you're a guy, it's like kind of just like sucks to suck. Like, it's really difficult. I live in Miami where there's so many men here that will just catcall women. So we have to kind of be on defense all the time. And that comes from being a model and being seen on social media. I typically don't like when men come up to me ever.
It's relatable. Agreed.
But if you're a girl, it's just be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, most influencers or models are really friendly and excited to meet you too.
Sure. And I think it's kind of like verifying, hey, I'm doing really well. These people look up to me. They admire me. So I'm sure it's a nice compliment too when it's not scary.
Yeah.
So through doing promotions and working with a lot of nightlife and clubs, do you feel there was ever a point of your career where you got kind of caught up in that, in the partying, the nightlife, and how did you get out of that if so?
I actually worked in bottle service in Miami when I first moved. Well, not when I first moved here, about a year in after I quit mortgage. I've been here almost 3 years now. And nightlife it's fun, but it is like a toxic world of its own. And you're encouraged to drink because you have clients spending. So I was probably drinking like every shift for a while. And I did get really caught up. And then it gets to the point where it's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I'm not healthy. Why do I feel sick all the way? You know, I was getting nauseous like every day.
Yeah.
And it really puts a toll on you and your relationships. And it's hard to be present because you're always hungover, waiting to go to work. How I got out of that was I actually got fired.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I had a casting for New York Fashion Week. And that's when this was the pivotal moment, switching from bottle service to modeling. And they basically said I couldn't miss a shift or whatever. And I was like, I'm missing the shift. I have to for this.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to go all in.
Okay. So it's kind of like a burn your ships moment, like, hey, I have to make this work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And understandable. And I think most successful people, they just kind of, you know, choose their path. They go all in on it. And, you know, it sounds like that's what you did. And obviously it's worked out, which is great. So as far as breaking into modeling and scams, I was watching a TikTok the other day and it was actually terrifying. It was a girl in Miami and I guess a photographer reached out to her and she went to this booking. It was at a house and it turned out the whole thing was like a scam and she almost got trapped. Just really scary. So has anything like that happened to you early on or do you know anyone that's happened to? And what are some signs that new models can look out for to be careful when it comes to that?
This actually did happen to me.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like I don't know what happened with her, but it's got to be similar.
Yeah.
I got an email and the pay was like outrageous.
Yeah.
They're like, and it was for a magazine. And of course you're hopeful. You're like, oh, I hope this is real. I want to get $12,000 for the shoot or whatever. Sure. And I just decided to do my due diligence and the photographer they mentioned I had already shot with. So I texted him. I'm like, hey, what do you think about the shoot? And he's like, it's not me. So in my mind, and they had a fake LinkedIn, fake emails, like everything. It looked so legit. Always do your due diligence if you are a new model or even like that you've been doing it for a while. Yeah. Reach out to other girls that have shot with photographers before you go into the shoot. I personally have only had one really bad experience with a photographer that he made me super uncomfortable. And ever since then, like now I'm like very, very on top of it.
Good, yeah.
Look at their work. What's their aesthetic? What do they shoot? You know?
Absolutely. If, say, somebody does go to one of these shoots and it is a legit photographer, but they are feeling a little uncomfortable, what would you recommend as far as maintaining your professionalism but getting out? What would you say, or how did you handle that?
Okay, I'll just tell the story really quick. It was like an underwater shoot, which is cool, but it actually could have been so artistic, and that's what it's supposed to be. And he was like, "You need to take off your swimsuit," and I'm like,
"Sir,
I'm underwater. Like, I can't cover. What do you mean? Yeah, you want me to drown to cover my boobs? Like, and he was like, "I'm paying you. I own you right now. You're gonna do it."
No.
And I was so uncomfortable. Like, I could not believe he just said this. And so I started crying, and I'm like, I'm not, like, no, we're done here.
Yeah.
But I did start crying and be like, you know, try to make him feel bad too.
Sure.
Please stop.
Well, he should, yeah.
In that scenario, I don't know. I had shot with him before that too.
Yeah.
And didn't have a bad experience. You have to say no. You're a professional. This is your job. If you're going to walk in a runway show and they want you to be exposed, you say no. You say, I need to have something over it. Typically, they will listen. And if they don't, like, refuse the job.
Good.
It's not worth your whole career, you know?
Absolutely. And your morals, kind of like you said, back to the OnlyFans thing, nothing wrong with it. But if it's going outside of your moral compass, you know, sticking to your brand, I think is most important. And obviously, you've proven that that's worked out. Going into Swim Week and Fashion Week and all of the large scale productions that you've been a part of, is it ever catty when it comes to that? Are there ever girls where they make it overly competitive or kind of a bad vibe being there?
Competitive, yes. There's like 20,000 models and they only pick like 40. For Miami Swim Week, there's a few different shows, but so it's very competitive. You definitely want to be on top of your game, practicing your walk, getting the exposure. But I wouldn't say it's catty from other models. I would say sometimes designers can be, they're stressed out.
Sure.
Backstage is absolute chaos. There's girls like running around.
Yeah.
Like literally, like you're backstage. Girls are like changing. This happened to me. We're like changing mid swimsuit because you're back to back sometimes. So you're running. There's people helping you change your swimsuit, and then you're on. So it's just kind of like teamwork in that sense. But it's more like sometimes the staff that can be a little aggressive.
Sure.
They're stressed out, you know.
It's understandable. Do you think that typically with productions like that, they go with more established models, or do you think it would be possible for a new model to break into that? And what do you think they look for in someone that's new?
I did it as a new model.
Really?
That's actually was like my first thing was Miami Swim Week. I absolutely think you could do it without, one, you don't have to be signed to an agency. You can freelance, do anything. I didn't sign until this year, actually. In New York.
Oh.
What they're going to look for is a good walk. So I learned from YouTube. I heard about a casting like 3 days, learned my walk, filmed it. And then also like building relationships with either other models that can help you or designers.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And I think that's probably comforting to new models to know, because I would assume for me or like anyone just from an outside looking in that you would probably need an established following and things like that. So it's good to know. Yeah. How do you handle hate comments? Do you think you experience that more than the average person since your platform has grown? And has that ever affected you at all?
Yes, it has. Hate comments in general, like it would be so easy to be like, it's just a troll on the internet. Like, don't take it serious. Yeah. I still struggle with it. I actually have an assistant for Instagram that like goes through my DMs and kind of vets them out. And that was a really good decision to do. But on TikTok, I feel like that's actually where you get the most hate comments because it's such a quick interaction.
Yeah.
And you may never see this creator again. I had to like just stop reading them and like get off. Sometimes I'll respond and I'll delete my response.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's being mentally tough.
Sure. And you know they want a reaction.
Yeah.
I got my first hate comment the other day for the first time ever on TikTok, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't even something that I'd been previously insecure about. They said I had ashy knuckles. What do you mean? Of all the things you could, all the things you could say.
Staring at my knuckles.
I know. And I'm like, okay, if you like wanted to pick one thing about me to say,
that.
Yeah, I know. Like, at least it's not something I was previously insecure about, because I'm like, I know I'm moisturized, okay? So,
like,
but yeah, but I was like, dang, people are kind of mean out there. I know that's like kind of a silly like thing to say, but I was like, man, I guess we'll see how this goes from here on out, just what people have to say. But
this is actually funny. A lot of creators will have like an account that they comment their own hate comments.
Oh my gosh.
To create like a comment war, because that's how you get good engagement. So it's actually a good thing for us, even though I'm like, I don't want to be told I have ashy knuckles, but like someone else is probably like, no, she doesn't. They're perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're great.
It's good engagement for us. Like,
I agree. Different topic, but how did you go about getting brand partnerships? I know you've worked with Fashion Nova. I think Jackson is another one that you work with. How did you guys get in contact? Did they reach out to you? And how would you advise someone who's newer in the industry to start getting into that and connecting?
I have a lot of advice on this because there's a lot of different strategies I use. I actually made a little ebook and I have one for influencing and modeling, because I was getting a lot of girls have the same questions I did.
Yeah.
It's on my website.
That's so smart.
Yeah. Just because it was getting a little redundant, and there's so many ways to get brand deals now. For me, Jackson I've been working with for like years.
Yeah.
I think they reached out first. Fashion Nova, I actually met one of their managers for influencers in person. And that's how I got that. But I've helped other girls get it through, like, you can find the email address. And it's just like, don't be scared to reach out.
Yeah.
Shoot in the close, say you don't have a Fashion Nova deal, but you want one. Order some Fashion Nova, do a professional shoot, tag them, send them the photos. Hey, this is what I can give you.
That is so smart. What would you say in the initial message that you send them? I know obviously you have your ebook and that could be really helpful to a lot of people, but is there a template that you would use, or at least what would you include in that email besides the photos?
I definitely have like my own templates I just save in my email. A lot of times now I just reach out via email instead of DM.
Yeah.
It can kind of get lost, and a lot of times they don't even answer the DMs. I actually did this. You can use ChatGPT, and
smart.
It's like a hack, but just make sure you go through and like customize it. But I would do that, you know, they write me a way to contact a clothing brand about a collab.
Speaking of DMs, what is the craziest DM that you have ever gotten from somebody? And if you're comfortable answering, who's the biggest celebrity that has ever DM'd you since you're following Grew?
There's a lot of like crazy DMs. I don't really go through my requests too much because now it's
scary place. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to go in the deep dark.
The trenches.
Yeah. There's like men that are like into very weird things like a pay pig. Or financial. I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's very weird. Those comments are, you know, we won't even get into that, because I'm like, there's no way you typed this and sent this to another human being. And then in terms of celebrities, I'm not going to call out anyone directly, but I would say it's a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
In Miami, Texas, I don't know, but they don't follow you. They'll just be liking your stuff or sliding in the DMs.
Interesting. So since growing, I know now this is your full-time job, right? And you turn it into a career. What did you do initially to monetize? What was step one in doing that?
Definitely social media was step one, Instagram. Because I would say as a model, don't go all in full time without another income, because it can be pretty inconsistent, especially if you don't, like we talked about earlier, like motivation and momentum. If you want to take a break, you're not getting paid as a model. You have to be there. So I would say just posting on social media a lot was how I started to monetize.
And then did brands just reach out to you, or, you know, when was the first time you really started making a lot of money from it? And what was kind of like the gateway to that, I guess? Like, did a brand say, hey, if you post this product, I'll give you this? And that's kind of how it started?
I would say getting like a monthly deal instead of just like one post time. So with Jackson, for example, I actually fly to LA to shoot with them. So I do their e-com as well. That's how you're going to get like big money as a model.
Sure.
Because they need you a lot. You're shooting all their new campaigns. And then I do promo for them on Instagram. So getting that one, you just need that one solid brand to keep working with.
Do you have any dream collabs that you haven't had yet with a brand or another model maybe that you would want to do in the future?
Absolutely. I think for me, I really want to keep working towards print, like magazine. Every girl like dreams of Sports Illustrated. They've kind of changed their image a lot. I don't know.
Sure.
Have you seen them recently?
I have a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of goes with the whole like being super extreme on one side to include everyone. So I'm trying to be really careful with my words.
I understand what you're trying to say though. I think like there can be, I mean, I'll say it because I'm not modeling, but I think when it comes to inclusivity, I think it's a beautiful thing and I think it's amazing. But I do think that going one end of the spectrum just a little too hard, you're almost doing too much. And I think it takes away the desirability of the position. It used to be, and it still is in a lot of ways, something that you have to work really hard for. And you have to look at least somewhat of a certain way and work out and go to the gym to get there. So it almost detracts from the exclusivity, which is what made it so great in the first place. Kind of like the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, like getting rid of that. What are your thoughts on that? I know you kind of want to be careful with this, but
I mean, whatever. Sue me. Get sued.
They're like, I want lawyers on speed dial.
With Victoria's Secret or any of these brands that it used to be like the top of the top worldwide supermodel, like those girls, they work so hard. And is it achievable? No, it's like literally not achievable. But it became Victoria's Secret because of that. The angels. It built the whole brand around it. So them going because they got canceled, completely the other side. It's like disappointing in a way because I used to think like, oh, it's all Photoshop or they just edit everything. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're retouching and beautifying everything. But like a lot of models like actually work so hard for this physique. And I think there's a vendetta against being healthy and in shape.
Yeah.
I love body positivity and being confident and putting yourself out there. But there's that fine line. Like, well, now you're kind of promoting like obesity and that comes with diabetes and things that are so bad for you versus like, the other side. So it's kind of like, where's the balance?
Back to what you were saying, just like the competitive nature of modeling and everything like that and going up against with the whole inclusivity movement, which is beautiful and amazing, like we said. However, there's people veering too far towards unhealthy versions of inclusivity. So how do you feel that affects you and the competitive nature of getting jobs?
Right now, I kind of talked earlier about like there's a vendetta against like being very in shape or like having an incredible body or whatever you want to call it. I'm not just competing against, I don't even like the word competing, but to get booked for a job, it's not just going to be other blondes that look like me. It's going to be girls that are like, they could be not even overweight, just like horrible lifestyle. That are going to get the job over me just for the sake of the brand staying inclusive.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard challenge because I do think we work so hard. We really do. Like it is a full-time job to maintain looking how you want to look, to be a bikini model in Miami. There's a lot of pressure. So it like sucks sometimes because I'm like, even if I wanted to, I could never gain like X amount of weight to just be getting jobs. Like, because even then I would be like slightly overweight. I naturally am petite. So it's a problem in the industry that I don't know if there's a solution for. It's just brands being so scared to stick to how they got their brand there,
Yeah. It's like they're trying to be so inclusive, they become exclusive again, It's like they're excluding the people who initially would have gotten the job in the honor of being inclusive. So it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like, y'all actually aren't inclusive
100%.
at all.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's what's going on in the industry. So there is a pressure to like look this way, but I've even had an agent tell me like, you need to gain 5 pounds. You need to, you know, and that's, maybe I was getting a little too skinny or whatever, but
to whose standard, you know?
Exactly. Like what's the standard now?
Yeah.
Like, what are we going off of, you know?
Absolutely.
Just, we don't want to offend someone that like potentially doesn't want to go to the gym 5 days a week to like have a 6-pack. We don't want to offend you. So we're going to put someone that is now promoting being overweight.
Yeah. But then it's like they do offend the person who's conventionally attractive and fit.
Yeah.
In the name of doing that.
Literally.
So it's like, how do you win?
2023. You know?
Yeah. So I, back in the day, used to do bodybuilding shows. And now, again, with Ozempic being such a thing, I think an interesting question was raised off camera. Does being on Ozempic make you not natty? Because obviously people take steroids and there's organizations that test you for steroids, but you can't test for that. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a cheat? Do you think it can be helpful? Or, you know, what do you think?
I've never thought about it. It's like being a cheat.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what the?
Like, call me a cheater then.
I know. I believe in anything that's going to help you feel your best. So I've seen a lot of people like have completely transformed their life from Ozempic and like post it and they're like, I lost like 50 pounds, whatever it is. And then they're feeling way better, more confident. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, is there like side effects that have come out about it?
I mean, not that I'm on it, but if I were, I know a lot of people do get really sick. They get a lot of nausea, but I think it's also because it's something that's not supposed to necessarily be in your body. It is slowing your digestion, so you get full a lot faster. But as far as the long-term effects, I don't think we'll know until years down the road. And, you know, I'll keep y'all updated. But I think it can help a lot of people. I've heard it also helps with alcoholism because it is anything that you crave too. It kind of deters that. So I've heard stories of people who were binge drinking, drinking every single night, and it makes you not crave not just food, but also alcohol. So it's helped a lot of people get sober from what I hear.
I feel like there's so many benefits for it.
I think so too.
Have you heard about Ozempic Old Face?
Yes.
That's like the one thing I saw. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know.
Ozempic
like,
face, yeah.
Yeah. Is that real? Like,
oh, I think so. My opinion on this, based on the TikToks I've seen,
yeah, that's
credible.
where I get my news.
I'm like, my opinion based on my For You page is that if you lose a lot of weight really quickly, I guess the theory is you lose fat from not just your body, but your face too. So then it makes you kind of saggy. But then it's like, well, I guess you can get filler and all kinds of stuff like that. But then where does it end? But who's to say? Again, I'll keep you guys updated. But I think that's probably why you're losing a lot of fat, maybe from your face too. And it makes you look older because it's just like skin.
More
What do you think?
hollow,
Yeah.
I lost a bunch of weight for me this year. And it was because I stopped drinking so much.
Right.
I was drinking like shooting champagne when I was working at the club. So once that stopped, I noticed it too. Like at one point I was very thin.
Yeah.
And I thought I looked like hollow.
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, and I mean, I'll openly talk about it because I talk about a bunch of stuff anyway on here. And I think, again, it goes back to just relatability, not, you know, but I took like, I don't know, a little bit of a break recently from being on it because I had lost so much weight. Like I was posting photos and my friends were like, Rebecca, I love you and you look great, but like, are you actually good? But I think the beauty standards with social media and everything going on these days creates this narrative in your head of maybe you're not skinny enough. Like when is too much? So I think it can be really good, but I also think it can be a little dangerous because when do you actually stop? Because you notice yourself starting to look better and you're like, oh, but what if I just look a little bit more better? You know?
That's with everything though. I feel like, you know, everything that we like even like technology or social media, like I like social media because that's how I get paid, but it's balance, you know? And I think everything can be corrupt and you can abuse anything, you know?
How do you check yourself when you feel like you might be going a little too far with something, whether, you know, I know some friends, like it happened with them with filler. They just kind of kept going because they're like, oh, this looks good. Let me just push it a little bit further. And it took either me or one of our other friends telling them, hey, like you're beautiful naturally. Let's talk about this. Has that ever happened? Like when you felt you were getting a bit too skinny, did someone say something to you or was it just really?
I have one best friend, and I have a couple best friends,
Yeah.
but she's the one. Like, we keep it real.
Yeah.
With everything. We've been best friends since kindergarten, and she'll straight up tell me like, "Why'd you edit your face like that?" Or why'd you know? She'll call me out, and yeah, I'll get offended, but I'm like, "Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing that?" Like,
Yeah.
And she kind of pointed it out. Like, she's like, "You were so tiny."
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I was like at the peak of not peak because I'm not going downwards,
Sure.
but that was probably like April. I signed with my New York agency in February. So it was a couple months after that. And I was really, really identifying with I'm a professional model.
Sure.
And kind of letting that take over a little.
Absolutely. And well, I mean, you look at like Bella Hadid and she's gorgeous, but they're also tiny and it's like comparison again. So that definitely makes sense.
But have you seen that video? And she calls her mom and she's like sick. And mom's like, well, eat an almond.
Mm-hmm. Good old Yolanda.
That's like literally like what they do. Like it's not healthy. There's two sides.
Growing up and, continuing to move through your life, when you plan to have kids, how do you think you're going to teach them, hey, like, this is important, your appearance and your health is important, but still be realistic and be healthy? How do you think you'll kind of raise them as opposed to Yolanda Hadid, who, starves?
Right. I come from a family where like they all like fad diet.
Yeah. Same.
And like, even when I was going to try out for college cheerleading, like my sister and my mom like basically told me I was fat. In politer words. So I come from a family where like there is a standard to like care about your body.
Sure.
We all were like athletes growing up. So I think just like with my kids, just like teaching them early on to take care of themselves. When you feel better about yourself, like when you're putting in healthy foods, like your brain feels better. So it does go with like caring about how you look.
Sure.
But also like, I don't want my kids to be depressed because they're eating fast food all the time. I've seen it happen to me,
Absolutely.
So just teaching them at a young age, like it's okay to care how you look, like but it's not the most important thing.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I think it's a vicious cycle of you're eating however you want, and then maybe you get bullied because of that in school. And then also there's direct studies that show what your gut health is, your mental health is as well. I mean, there's a direct link to it. It's all going in your body. So I think, again, there's inclusivity and there's balance, but then there's just extremes on either side. But the natty question is a really good question. My friend has a big, he had started as a bodybuilding podcast, but I kind of want to ask him that and his opinion because he's still so actively in that scene, I guess, like what his thoughts are on that. And if he feels like it makes them like not natty because you can't test for it, I don't think, but I wonder if they'll add that eventually. So there's certain federations, from what I know, where they do test you for steroids, but then the NPC, which is what I competed in, like they don't, or at least they didn't. And I mean, the like state that people get to in bodybuilding competitions these days, the state that people get to in these bodybuilding competitions, like back in the day, I remember I started around 2016 and looking back at people from like 2010, they looked like me right now, like just maybe a little skinnier and like more toned, whatever in shape. And now it's this, I don't want to say impossible standard because people are attaining it, but they push their body to such a limit that bodybuilding that's supposed to be geared for health and wellness becomes so unhealthy. It's like there was a girl, one of the years that I was competing, she went to nationals and she literally died in the hotel because I guess she was so depleted of water. She was just trying to tighten up. She hadn't eaten. She was on so many like PEDs. And she literally had a heart attack in her hotel in the name of getting so lean and so fit. And it's like these judges put you up on a stage and it's so close. It's like, oh, this person has more of a glute hammy tie-in than this person. This person's shoulder is a little more striated. And you become so hypercritical that I have so many friends in bodybuilding who have developed eating disorders, who have body dysmorphia. And I can imagine it could be the same with modeling, but you push yourself to such an extent because you're competitive and it's your passion, but it's like, when is it too far? Right. And obviously it can go to a point where it just doesn't end well. So like essential body fat, from my understanding for women, is I think 10%, like 8 to 10%. And when I was competing, I was below it by far. Like my hormones were out of whack. Like I know a lot of girls they stop getting their period. Like it's really, really bad. So again, I think it can be good if there's that middle ground, but it's either like, you go way, way too far with it and you kind of wreck your health in the name of fitness, or you try to at least find the middle ground. So
mentally, like, when you were at like your like
yeah,
highest competing level, like how did you feel? Like, did you feel yourself like, okay, maybe I'm doing too much, or like were you just completely like unaware?
I think it's one of those things where when you're in the moment, you don't realize exactly the extent of it. But I remember the guy that I was dating at the time, my coach assigned me a ton of cardio because peak week was coming up, which for those who don't know is the week leading up to a competition, where you kind of get the most strict and tighten up and cut water and all that. And I was so determined that I wasn't getting any sleep. I was so malnourished and depleted. I physically couldn't sleep at night. I had to take like medication to sleep. And then we would go to the gym and I had to do cardio and he would walk me to the treadmill because I couldn't even walk. Like I would have to hold his arm. Like I was a skeleton and he would have to walk me to this treadmill and like help me do my cardio. And at the end of it, I had to do this seated little bike because I couldn't even, like I could barely walk long enough because I was so depleted. And like, granted, there's healthy ways to do it. And I don't want to knock bodybuilding because I think it's a phenomenal thing to do. But again, when you're losing sight of the actual reason you're even doing it, which is to show health and fitness, and you become super unhealthy, where's the line? So, yeah.
That's just like the pressure that comes with kind of like changing your physique to look a type of way. Because I feel the same, not to the sense of like I'm so exhausted I can't walk, but more so like I would just like question myself.
Exactly, yeah.
And body dysmorphia, like I'm sure I have it. Like I can,
Same.
yeah. Sometimes I'll even look in the mirror like on set and I'm not really happy with how I look. But then I'll get the pictures back and I'm like, why was I tripping?
Yeah.
These are really good.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show like we're so in our head. Maybe it's like everyone. Does everyone have body dysmorphia? Like
it's gotta be, honestly. And I think maybe sometimes people assume who they view as like conventionally beautiful or whatever, they might not. But I feel like they might even have it the worst, you know, just because they're around people like that, maybe whether it's modeling or bodybuilding, they're around people like that all the time. And it's just comparison. It's like they say, like, comparison is the thief of joy or whatever. Yes. You're always looking at other people like, do I get more lip filler like them? Do I get a BBL like them? Do I need to, you know, do a little more cardio, whatever it might be. And you're so caught up in that, like I was with my bodybuilding, that you're not living in the moment of, oh, I'm really doing something that most people won't and can't. And this is really phenomenal. It's just, what can I be doing more? I'm not doing enough. And it does create, at least for me too, like really bad body dysmorphia and even like a little bit of an eating disorder and stuff like that. So
I struggled with an eating disorder in college.
Yeah.
And I did college cheerleading. I feel like half the team.
Yeah.
Half the team did. But I was actually thinking about this earlier. Like, you know how the Kardashians get so much hate for like the work they've done? Mm-hmm. Like if you put a normal person, like just anybody in their spotlight as much as they have, like if they were completely natural, they would be criticized. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if you put any human being in their position, I feel like we would all have the same outcome because that amount of pressure, like you go outside and you are going to be seen all the time. It's not even really like comparing yourself to other people. It's just like the pressure to be perfect within yourself.
Well, look at poor Chloe. Like coming up in the first seasons, everyone was like, oh, she's like the fat sister. And people were ruthless. And now she looks so different than she initially did. But because of that, probably, and everyone's like, oh my God, she's had so much work done. She's done too much. So where's the happy medium? Like, when are y'all happy with this girl? Like,
society bullied her into looking like that. And
but now that she does, like,
she looks good, you know? Like I think
she looks great.
She looks great.
Yeah.
But it's just, society will always have something to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Agreed. Are there any influencers right now that you look up to that you think kind of are in that middle ground a little bit? They promote inclusivity, but they're also realistic and healthy. Who do you think is kind of promoting that in the right way?
I'll go for Miami. Yeah. Cindy Prado is...
I love her. I follow her.
Yeah. She has a great physique, but she's also promoting taking care of yourself through supplements, diet, working out. And then she also posts a lot about like her routine. She gets up at 5 a.m. Super excited. Mental health is a huge, huge part of modeling that a lot of people don't realize. Like it's not just looking pretty. If you're not confident and mental maintenance, like really working on that, you're not going to perform well and you're going to burn out. She's a really good example of being healthy. She's doesn't restrict her diet too much. I would definitely follow her if you don't. She's
Sure. Yeah.
a great follow.
And I do too. So I recommend it as well, guys, coincidentally. Yeah, that's really funny. I feel like I don't follow a ton of influencers, but she is one that I really, really like as well. And I feel like she does promote health and balance. So what's next for you? Is there anything coming up that you're really excited about? Any projects?
Yeah, I'm walking in some shows in Art Basel.
Nice.
I almost said Basel, by the way. It's
That's
Art Basel, yeah.
Like, I don't know, guys. I'm from Texas. I have no idea.
I'm like, I'll just mumble it. No,
yeah.
They're doing some fashion shows for that. It's like the same entity that does Miami Swim Week.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be really exciting. And it's the show I'm walking in. Did you watch probably not, but the Mugler show?
Mm-mm.
So the style, it's very industrial. Paris Hilton walked in it. It's very industrial.
Wow. Oh, you know what? I did see her walking in it. Her legs look great. Her quads are like phenomenal. Yeah.
But it's a different walk. It's not so like Miami Swim Weeks. The walk is a little more, it depends on the brand, fun or sexy, but it's very high fashion. So I'm going to have to like really train for that. I'm excited.
Sure. That is really exciting. What do you do to get ready for a show? Like how far in advance do you start getting ready? And then what does that look like?
It just depends, I guess, on the show. Like knowing for Miami Swim Week, a lot of girls will start training like probably like a month before. Castings are typically in advance. Miami Swim Week is just a game of its own. You can find out you're walking in a show that day, the day before.
Oh, wow.
I mean, as a model, like you're kind of maintaining all the time. So I won't necessarily like crazy, like cut down or anything, but definitely like recording my walk for the designer because I kind of like need to know their brand. So I do my research.
Absolutely. And I think it just kind of goes back to what you said about being healthy all the time and having that maintenance for sure.
This was kind of crazy. I've never experienced this. And I'm not hating on it because I was like, okay, this is kind of a good idea. I went to a PR event and one of the paparazzi photographers that shoots the Kardashians and all the celebrities in Miami was there. And they're like, I've been in the event for like an hour at this point. And they're like, hey, we need to shoot you for paparazzi. So they like stage you getting out of the car and coming into the venue. And there's like probably only like 3 or 4 photographers, but they have one of those flashlights, like the big lights that's like to make it look like there's like 30 cameras. So paparazzi is like literally like staged. And that's the ones that's shooting like the like A-list celebrities. So it's edited, it's selected what's going into press.
Do you think a lot of celebrities and influencers pay photographers and like paparazzi to show up?
Everything is set up. Like nothing is an accident, you know?
Interesting.
Everything's fake.
Even like, if they're out and they like don't want to be seen with someone and they're dating someone and whatever, do you think they do that for press?
I think, everything's a PR move.
For sure.
Taylor Swift and Travis Scott. PR move.
Smart one, but for sure.
There's
absolutely
so many conspiracies with that, like what he's involved in. We won't get into that.
Well, it's kind of like, what was it, like Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson or whatever. Yeah. Like, do we think that was PR? I don't know. But I guess people say they actually dated, but who's to say? Love her and love him. But who's to say?
Chris knows what she's doing.
Devil works hard, but
you're going to be dating so-and-so next. Yeah.
I mean, I would listen to whatever she says. I mean, listen.
Chris for president.
Exactly. I'm like, Chris, hit me up, please. I'm begging you. Just kidding. Please change my life. What are your socials? And is there anything you want to promote? I know you have your ebook, but is there anything else you're working on?
My socials are just my name. It's at Kalli, Kalli, Locklear, Locklear. I'm actually going to start working on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
I've had an account, but I haven't really like done anything with it, like no posts. But I think that's a really good way to, one, start connecting with my audience where they're seeing a lot more behind the scenes and like what's really going on.
Yeah. Do you think that's kind of the content you're going to be posting on there is like vlogs, behind the scenes, stuff like that?
Absolutely. I really want to, like we talked about, the authenticity.
Yeah.
Just tapping into that because for me too, it gets really redundant and so surface level just posting professional shoots all the time. And even like the comments on my pictures. I love being hyped up. Like you guys are the best because it helps me with my career. But I just I want to build more of that that community where I'm being a light. I'm not just another pretty face.
Yeah, like a distant figure that's not, relatable, but someone that people can actually relate to. And I think getting ready for this interview, I was looking on YouTube and there's a lot of videos from Swim Week and stuff like that. But I think getting to sit down and actually talk to you and get to know you, I'm sure people will love you just as much. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that for you. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. And, I can't wait for the audience to get to know you and to see your YouTube channel as well.
Excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning into Secured Sessions, the podcast with no niche. We post new episodes every single Tuesday. Love you guys. Until next time.